Hello, I'm Karena.
And I'm Jamie.
Welcome to As Told by ADHD. This podcast is a brainchild of two best friends with ADHD who share a passion for learning and a knack for finding the most fascinating tidbits of knowledge. Each week, we embark on a wild and hilarious journey of discovery as we dive headfirst into topics that pique our curiosity. From dark folklore to bizarre statistics, cultural ceremonies to famous dead people, we're here to entertain, educate, and tickle your funny bone.
This week on As Told by ADHD, we're talking about space stuff, part 2. What'd you guys think of Karena's last week?
I feel like it was just kind of like one of those episodes that some people do where they go on Reddit and they read like some accounts like of people. Like there was a little bit of education there, and then it just was like, here's some accounts, listen to everybody's stories type things, which it's not a bad thing.
I'm going to just go ahead and dive right into my story because it's a lot of information and it is going to be very aggravating for most people. Some people might be like, hell yeah, but I'm like, hell no. Okay.
Depending on the demographic, I guess.
So, I have a couple questions for you, Karena.
Of course, ma'am, please.
What if we lived in a world where man had never set foot on the moon?
Okay, cool.
Okay, exactly. But
like, great.
What if there was a real-life supervillain that wanted to blow up the moon and had the means to do so?
True story.
True story. What if that supervillain was your very own government and you had no idea that your tax dollars were going towards funding a galactic ego showdown between two of the most powerful countries on Earth?
What in the world? Please tell me that this is before they understood the power of the moon. Please.
What if I told you that this was almost reality in the 1950s? Well after we knew the effects of the moon. Also, side note, we knew the effects of the moon, like people, humans as a whole, understood the effects of the moon around the time of 200 AD. What do you think about all of this so far?
It's bringing me to like, and I hate to bring this up because it's kind of like a touchy subject, but I feel like it's the same type of anger. It's like that TikToker who had the pet squirrel, and the government was like, I don't like you having that pet squirrel, and then killed that pet squirrel.
I don't remember that happening, but I believe you.
It happened a couple years ago. It was a TikTok famous squirrel man duo, best friends.
Oof.
People came in, took the squirrel, killed the squirrel. It's kind of like one of those things like, why?
Exactly.
Why does this affect you so much to where you feel like you need to do something about it, which usually means destruction? Why?
Well, I'm going to tell you why. So this thing was called Project A119. Before I tell you about what that is, I'm going to tell you how we got to that point of the United States government almost blowing up the moon. What do you know about the Cold War?
Unnecessary.
Correct.
Summarize an experience in one word.
Unnecessary.
One word. What do you think about what if like the people be out like, I don't care. Cool. Yay. What about wars? Don't. Why?
Well, the Cold War wasn't actually like a fighting war. It was kind of a battle of egos, like I said before.
Yeah, unnecessary.
Unnecessary. So, at the end of World War II in 1945, the Cold War started. And most people know World War II was the Ally powers versus the Axis powers. Mm-hmm. And So the main players were, in the Allies, you had United Kingdom, you had Soviet Union, you had China, and you had the US. Those were like the main players. In the Axis powers, you had Germany, Italy, and Japan. Those were also the main players. When the war ended in Europe in May 1945, the Soviet Union saw this as an opportunity. So they had been utterly devastated in both World War II and World War I. And they were like, how do we stop this from happening? How do we stop other countries from invading the Soviet Union? Like we're tired of this. Like, we don't want to be the center of, like, where the war is happening, you know?
Right.
So they decided the best course of action would be to start slowly taking over other countries, but from the sidelines. So they stayed in Poland because, like, they had occupied Poland after they kicked Germany out.
Right.
They stayed in Poland, and how they would, like, kind of take over was, one, they would use their power and money to influence the public. They also would kind of push out anybody who didn't have their same ideologies, which at this point, at the height of the Cold War, even way before, like even before World War II ended, the Soviet Union was communist. What do you know about communism?
I genuinely cannot remember right now. Because I'm thinking of socialism, but...
Right, which I think that they're, like... I think that they were built on similar principles, but are enacted significantly different. So,
okay.
Communism started as an idea of equality. No rich, no poor, everyone working together, and no one would want for anything. The Soviet Union tried to make this happen, but they went about it in a way that became controlling over its people. So people no longer had choices. They had to do whatever the government wanted. They had to say whatever the government wanted to hear. And instead of freedom and fairness, which was what communism should have been from what we understand from Karl Marx, it ended up creating control and fear within the people. And then it started to spread into Poland, into East Germany, into several other parts of the eastern part of Europe.
So communism tends to birth dictatorship.
Yes.
Okay.
Yes, I would fully agree with that. Because it's basically saying the government has full control over everything. And, like, in theory, I mean, I don't like it, but if the government is good, if they have good intentions, I could see that being almost a good thing. But if they have the abuse of power, that's going to be very bad.
And I actually did, and I'll speak so briefly, but we actually did like a philosophy discussion about kind of this matter. No, it wasn't actually philosophy. It was American government, actually. And we all came to the conclusion that even if somebody had good intentions and they may have did their first, if we had this random made up president who was like a really good person who, you know, worked for the people, he was everything everybody wanted, you know, and we decided to get rid of the 8-year term where they can serve indefinitely. That good president would end up becoming corrupt because nothing good comes from having ultimate power.
Exactly.
No circumstance.
I agree. That being said, they're starting to take over different parts of Eastern Europe, and they ended up splitting Germany into occupational zones. And this is right after the war. So Germany is like under the control of all of the Allied powers until they can get back up on their feet after what Hitler did. So it ends up kind of getting split in half. And Eastern Germany ends up being controlled by the Soviet Union, while the other side started to be controlled by the US and the UK. So this is where the US president, who was Harry Truman at the time, and he was staunchly opposed of communism and viewed it as an existential threat to democracy and international peace. Which, like, yeah, because with the ideologies of communism, with how it's being enacted, you're going to want to keep spreading it and keep getting more people under your control, right? Because that's just the way that communism works in the way that it's being implemented. In 1947, he ends up launching the Truman Doctrine, which basically was his attempt to contain communism. And it pledged to aid countries that were resisting the Soviet influence. So, like, he was like, hey, we don't want communism to spread. I'm sure you don't want your country taken over. We will help anyone who wants to get rid of them. In 1949, he ended up taking the idea, the North Atlantic Treaty Organization, aka NATO, to the UK. And he was like, hey, I have this idea, which it wasn't like solely his idea. It was like him and a bunch of other people came together and they were like, how do we combat this? And in his attempt to create NATO, he ends up getting the approval from the UK. The UK and the US end up going around to a bunch of different countries and being like, hey, do you want to join this? They ended up getting several allies. Canada and 10 other Western European nations were like, yes, we don't want Soviet Union. The goal was to defend against any potential Soviet aggression. It wasn't to like start a war. It was like a pre-defense. And they really wanted to stop the spread of communism. And I bet you're wondering at this point, Jamie, where's the space stuff? I thought this was space stuff, not a history lesson. And to that, my dear friend, I say, patience. Patience, we're getting there. Calm down.
She's reading my brain. Obviously, my face was stoic and still, but I was staring at. She was reading my brain that whole time.
So, this is where, or this is like right before we get to the point where they're like, let's blow up the moon. So, some would call this national defense, but I personally would call it the most dramatic pissing contest in history.
Oh my gosh.
Tensions were growing thicker day by day. In 1952, the United States tests the first hydrogen bomb on a little remote island called Enwetak Atoll. If I said that wrong, I apologize. And it's a little remote island in the Pacific, and it's kind of basically in between Hawaii and the Philippines. And the U.S., I think they got it, like, it ended up being part of a deal they made with another country, but unimportant to this story. They just have it, and they have been testing nuclear weapons on this little island. All I'm saying is, we're no longer in war. Why are we testing nuclear weapons on a little remote island? Like, stop it. Get some help. It really felt like at this point, the US was like, look what I can do. Boom. The Soviet Union was like, no, we're not playing this game. So as a reaction to NATO and testing of hydrogen bombs, they were like, we're going to sign the Warsaw Pact. And it stated that its goal was to ensure collective security in Europe. But it was also believed that it was to like solidify Soviets' control over the Eastern Bloc, which was like what they already had control over. Now, we've made it to space stuff. Because
We finally made it here.
In 1957, the Soviet Union launches Sputnik 1, the first artificial satellite. And this is when the space race begins. Within the next year, the U.S. is determined to catch up to the Soviet Union. Fully determined. They're like, we have, like, they are so far ahead of us. They're in space. They could watch us with the satellite that they just put up. They were like, I'm so scared. We have to be better. So, at this point, the U.S. government ends up funding the creation of NASA. Why, you ask? Why did we make a space program? Well,
because we want to be first. We are great. We are number one.
Basically.
He was number one. Sorry.
So they wanted to put as much attention to be more technologically advanced. So they dedicated all their time, all their money, all their resources, all their energy, and probably their left kidney to prove that they were better than the Soviet Union.
Of course.
And now we're in 1958. And this is when the plans begin to blow up the moon. And when I say blow up the moon, they just wanted to nuke the moon. They weren't like, let's just blow it up. They were like, I just want to put a nuke on the moon. Boom.
Make it make sense. Like, actually, what is the obsession with nukes?
I will never understand the way people obsess over things that go boom. Like, I could kind of understand fireworks because, like, they're pretty. But, like, guns, bombs, like, monster trucks, I don't know.
Yeah.
I don't get it.
Me either.
Anyway, so 1958, the U.S. Air Force commissions the Armor Research Foundation of Illinois Institute of Technology to draft what is basically a "what if we nuked the moon" paper. This was my reaction. I had to stop so many times while researching this because I was like, I can't do this. I can't. I need time. I was telling my partner about this and I was like explaining it, and I was getting so passionate that he was laughing hysterically at me.
Oh my gosh.
Because he's
like a very logical soul as well. So he was
is.
probably just like, what is happening?
He kept being like, why?
Oh, Jamie.
Anyway, and I'm sure you're wondering, what is the Armor Research Foundation? Well, the ARF was one of the first private non-profit contract research laboratories in the U.S. So they go to them and they're like, hey, we want to put a nuke on the moon. Tell us what'll happen. And they're like, okay. In 1958, a man named Leonard Riefel, I think that's how you pronounce it, was a part of this foundation. And he was approached by senior officers who asked him to write this paper. And there were 3 ranked officials that were in the documents that I found. And I believe that these were the people in the U.S. Air Force that were in charge of this project. They asked him to fast-track this project and to investigate the visibility and effects of a nuclear explosion on the moon. And they were like, this is top secret. Don't tell anyone except your team. And he got his team together, and there were about 12 people, including him, from the ARF listed as working and contributing on this paper. What are you thinking at this time? What do you
I believe that this is the time of lead paint.
This is the time of lead paint.
This is the time of lead paint. And none of these people are okay.
I agree with that statement. Okay. So, before I tell you what's in this paper, you will need to know exactly what the U.S. Air Force wanted. Like, what their idea was. We already know they wanted to nuke the moon. But why? Well, although it was never confirmed exactly why. It is widely speculated that it was a show of power to show the Soviet Union what they would be up against if they were to keep pushing boundaries. Okay, now we kind of know why, but how would nuking the moon accomplish this? Well, they wanted the bomb to be big enough to be seen from as much of the world as possible, specifically the Soviet Union and the US at the same time. Because they wanted to be like, hey, everybody, we're nuking the moon. Look up and watch the moon. And they also wanted the Soviet Union to be terrified. And they wanted, like, the nuke to bring Americans together. Which, like, why would it do that? Why? If I found out my tax dollars were going to put a nuke on the moon, I'd be so mad. I'd be
Girl,
so
I'm gonna have
mad.
a crick in my neck by the end of this daggum episode. Like, oh my gosh.
You're like,
I just keep,
what the
I'm
fuck?
gonna be down here by the time this episode is done.
I
Poor
know.
child. Okay.
Can you understand now why I had to pause so many times?
Yeah.
I have never been more frustrated while
And
researching
that's all
something.
that is. Like, my boyfriend was in the military for a while. He even told me that, you know, not only the US, because, I mean, I'm sure this was just something that's been adapted, you know, over time, is that they always do random stuff like this to show power. They'll do like a new testing site and make sure like the US hears it, or the US will do something and make sure this country like he hears it or sees it, or whatever, just to be like, ooh, they got this. Okay. Like,
Yeah.
show, it's literally always a show of power, and it
Exactly.
is disgusting.
Back to the 1950s. So now we know kind of why and how they wanted this to work. So where did they start? Well, let me tell you. I went through majority of this document. It took me a long time to get through because I don't understand a lot of it, and it was a lot of math that I just can't be bothered with, honestly.
Fair.
But let's just start with the title. They named this paper A Study of Lunar Research Flights, which is very misleading, in my opinion, because that title seems harmless, right? It's like, oh, we're thinking about flying on the moon. Cool. No, they wanted to put a nuke on the moon.
Wow.
In the opening abstract, it said, nuclear detonation in the vicinity of the moon are considered in this report. A study was conducted of various theories of the moon's structure and origin, and a description of the probable nature of the moon's surface is given. Now, this tells me a few things. A, they are only guessing what the moon is made of. B, everything in this paper is theoretical, meaning they have absolutely no clue, none whatsoever, what is gonna happen. And C, even the smartest men are dumb for humoring this idea. That's what that tells me. That's what it tells me. And I'm mad about it. So, after hearing that abstract, what do you think right now?
Same thing. They always make papers like this.
Mm-hmm.
To where they're like, oh, we're informing the public, but they don't really know what this means.
Right.
They don't know what this means for the actual Earth if they were to do this and stuff like that. It just says, hey, this is an experiment. This is how we got to the conclusion of doing this experiment. It's all fine, right? What they don't know, these people that are reading this don't know, is that this is a power move, a very dangerous one, and could literally have caused the Earth to go through like some apocalyptic Jurassic time type worldly shift. We could have had another ice age with the effects that it could have had on the human race over a demonstration of power.
Right. And not to mention, though, no one in the public knew anything about this. No one knew that this was even on the table. It was
so
top
the paper
secret.
wasn't.
No, the paper wasn't published. It was top secret.
That's even
Nobody
worse.
knew.
That's even worse.
Exactly. So, the introduction said, rapidly accelerating process in space technology clearly requires evaluation of scientific experiments or other human activities which might be carried out in the vicinity of the Earth's natural satellite. Among various possibilities, the detonation of a nuclear weapon on or near the moon's surface has often been suggested. The motivation for such detonation is clearly threefold: scientific, military, and political. Excuse me? Often suggested? Excuse me? Often? Stop! Stop it. Get some help. They basically came out and said that it really was a pissing contest. And they were trying to dance around it. Because it says right there, military and political in that statement. Also, often? Sorry for frustrating you today.
Whoo, we knew that they were kinds of stupid. We sure did, didn't we?
Also, in this introduction, they did state that they were concerned with the environment of space, the detection of nuclear device testing in space, and the capability of nuclear weapons for space warfare.
Space war. That's okay.
Space war. I read that as they didn't want the nuke to contaminate space, and they were worried that it would cause a war if they did end up doing what they wanted. You know what I mean?
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
So at least someone had some sense.
But the fact that it was in the same paper, like, and it wasn't made public, still doesn't sit right.
Nope.
Because, like, yeah.
Later on in the paper, they must have talked about this previously, because I didn't, like, they must have talked about it in person, because I didn't see anywhere before this point sending people to the moon with a nuke, but it sounded like they were, like, wanting to send someone to the, like, send a group of people to the moon to set up the nuke, come back, and then detonate the nuke, which, like, I guess would be safer than just sending a nuke to the moon on its own.
I guess. I don't know. The logic is don't. That's the logic.
Right. Maybe I just missed it, of them being like, hey. Because, like, I did skim some parts because I was like, I can't. I'm too irritated at this. I'm going to just skip forward a little bit. Also, there's a ton of math, a bunch of random charts that I didn't understand. It did state the problem of sending a vehicle to the moon and landing an instrument package on the moon rises the question of tracking in-flight and accurate location on the surface of the moon. Visual optical approaches to the problem are preferred because of the great sensitivity of the human eye. So they were worried about humans going to the moon and their eyes getting destroyed because of the sun, basically. It sounds like they're trying to talk them out of it, right? Which, like, I'm really glad they weren't like, yeah, just willy-nilly send the nuke to space.
They're
Boom.
bringing up some variables, yeah.
Right.
But literally, if it did happen, it would cause World War III. And
immediately after World War II.
Yeah.
Also, like, why did the U.S. Air Force and these scientists think sending people to the moon with a nuke in an atmosphere that they've never been around before, they've never tested, they don't know what's up there, how could they possibly think that's safe? Like, the likelihood, like, they don't know what kind of material they need to make the nuke out of for it not to detonate on the way there.
Yeah, they hadn't even been to space yet.
But also, with the very little information that they had about the moon itself, I'm genuinely shocked that they could seemed so confident in this paper about, because like it wasn't like, oh, this might happen. It was, this will happen. And I was like, how are you so confident?
Especially knowledge. Like, it just wasn't there. Not yet.
Exactly. They also made other points, which, like, don't know how we got to this point based off of the knowledge that we had. They thought there could be extraterrestrials on the moon, but they thought they might be microorganisms, and the radiation would stop their ability to reproduce. Which, like, it seemed like the U.S. Air Force didn't give a shit about that. They really wanted to know, like, what it would do to Earth. So they didn't care about anything other than themselves. They had a whole math section on, like, these hypothetical living organisms of how long they would be able to live after the detonation. Like, why?
Mm-hmm.
Like, one, you don't know if these organisms exist. If they did exist, you don't know what they are or what they're made of. Maybe there's already radiation on the moon and they'd be fine. Anyway, so I looked over this whole document as best I could, trying to remain interested without getting extremely irritated. And, like, I also learned that, like, scientists, they say the same thing over and over and over and over again in different ways when they could just say it one time, just once, get the point across, and everything would be fine. And it's really giving, like, this could have been an email. You know what I mean?
Right. Yeah. This could have been an email.
This really could have been just an email. So I didn't see anything about how the nuke could possibly fuck up the Earth's ecosystem other than, like, there might be a little radiation that falls down, maybe like a little fallout from the dust from the moon. But, like, the moon controls the tides. And like I said earlier, we have known since 200 AD that the moon and the tides are connected. Like, so there's one factor. Another factor is, like, the size of this nuclear bomb that they want, like, for it to be able to be seen from most of the Earth, it would need to be so incredibly huge that I can't imagine it wouldn't knock the moon off course. And they didn't even, I didn't read one single line that said it was worried about that.
Because they didn't know. They didn't know anything about space. Like, they had text that talks about stuff that's happening on Earth that had to do with space, but they hadn't been in space.
Apply physics to, like, stuff on Earth, right? You have an object. It moves, right? But it moves the way it wants to. Let's say it's moving this way. Another object comes, hits it, it goes the opposite way. You know, like, think about billiards. Right. There's a ball rolling, and then like, say the cue ball, you hit it, and it hits it as it's rolling, which you wouldn't do this, but it changes the course of it. So, like, why couldn't you apply that to the structure of the moon? Also, they didn't know what the moon was made of. What if it had been, like, made of gunpowder? Like, what if it just fully blew up the moon?
What if it was just a gas, like some of our planets?
Right.
Or a mixture of gases.
Right.
Yeah.
Like, so irritating. Anyway, am I being emotional right now? I apologize. I'm allergic to stupidity. It makes me emotional. I stand by that.
She's popping off a little bit.
I literally was so angry. Like, I got so upset. Okay. So, in my opinion, U.S. government should not have spent any money on this, but they did. But at least the scientists seem to have some type of care about the effects this would have. I think based on the paper, they ended up talking the U.S. Air Force out of it. I think I read somewhere that there was like interviews later on with the main researcher. He said something about how they were worried about fallout from the moon coming to Earth and fucking everything up. Not specifically the scientists, but the U.S. Air Force. And also, the scientists were like, oh, I don't think it's going to affect the Earth that much.
How?
I don't know. Couldn't tell you. That being said, remember how I said it was top secret?
Yes.
I bet you're wondering, how do we know about it now? Like, how did this become public in life today?
Right.
Well, one of the people that worked on this paper, he was actually ended up being very famous. His name was Carl Sagan. I didn't know who he was, but apparently he was like one of the space guys back in the day. He was kind of like Bill Nye before Bill Nye, and he had his own TV show called Cosmos, A Personal Voyage, and it was like a 13-part documentary series where he kind of just talked people through what it would be like to journey through space and time. Okay. Which sounds pretty cool. Maybe I'll go watch it.
Yeah.
He was an astronomer, a planetary scientist, and he was renowned for his scientific communicator ability, where he could like put scientific terms into layman terms for everybody to understand.
Which is so important even to this day.
Right. Mm-hmm. And he was an author of several science books. Like a lot of science books. I like went to go look it up and I was like, oh, maybe I could find like most popular. No, there's so many.
Okay, then.
And unfortunately, he ended up passing away in 1996 from pneumonia. And in 1999, a man named Key Davidson wrote a biography about him. And he dug into his past. He was like, I want this to like commemorate him. I want him to be honored by this. And he ended up finding 2 papers he wrote later that hinted at a paper he worked on for the government. And he was like, hold on a minute. What's that about? He ends up going public with this information. It really gave the illusion of like, oh, there's something, we don't know what it is, but he worked for the government for something and it's secret. We kind of want to know what it is. He was like, okay, I'm going to kind of like put this out there and see what happens. The main researcher, Leonard, he ends up coming out publicly in the year of 2000. And he's like, yes, there was a paper. Yes, it was the U.S. Air Force. They wanted to nuke the moon. And clearly, the public was like, excuse me? Excuse me? What? What do you mean? So, I'm not sure exactly who, but someone or some group enacted the Freedom of Information Act and requested for the information to be released. And it was by the end of the year 2000. The paper was released to the public. Mm-hmm. And Leonard ended up giving a bunch of interviews, and he ended up saying that he was horrified that such a gesture to sway the public's opinion was ever considered. He was like, oh my God, this is crazy. Which, like, why did you do it then? I mean, maybe he was too scared to say no because it was the U.S. Air Force. Maybe he thought if he didn't try to talk them out of it, who would, you know?
Or, as the government does, he probably didn't see the full product. They're probably just like, hey, what would happen, like this hypothetical, in your professional opinion, do you think the consequences could be? And only his consequence part was added to the whole document.
No, he wrote the whole document.
He wrote the whole thing.
Mm-hmm. And then
I just thought that they might have added him as an author or something.
Mm-mm. It says by his name, and then it has like contributors, which means they were all in a room together and he was sitting there typing. That being said, I'm really hoping that it was more along the lines of like, I'm going to do this because I don't want someone who would be for this to do it, to convince them to do this.
Yeah.
That's what I'm hoping. Like, I think it's dumb all around. I don't think that I would, with good conscience, be able to even humor this. But that's what I hope. I hope he was like, somebody else is going to talk them into doing this, and it's a bad idea. So I have to be the one to talk them out. And so many people in the science sphere had no idea that this was happening, and they were genuinely so incredibly shocked. Same, dude. Same. Even today, I'm shocked.
It does make me really angry to think that, like, the science and power should never be mixed. Because something, like, we would not be here today.
Right.
We wouldn't.
Yeah. I don't think we would either. But, I mean, the good thing about it is if they did do it, we wouldn't be here today, but we wouldn't have even had a chance to be alive. So we wouldn't have had to deal with any of it. So.
True.
What do you think could have happened if this happened? Like, if they went through with this, what do you think it would have caused?
Like I said earlier.
World War III.
Apocalypse. Yeah. World War III. Ice Age type thing. The same thing that, like, the same level of even, like, heat that just kills all organisms, dries up lakes, ocean. Like, yeah, I think that it could have been catastrophic for all living beings on Earth. Genuinely.
For sure. I think it would have caused a ton of natural disasters. Because, like we said in the last episode, the moon controls the water. Like, when it's further away, the tides go in or out. I don't know all of the details behind it. But when it comes closer, tides go in and out. Like, that's just how it works, you know? I think it would have caused so many tsunamis worldwide. I think that a lot of people would die just from natural disasters. I think it could have even pulled the moon out of its orbit, which in turn could have pulled the Earth out of its orbit, causing too much heat or too cold, like you said. Like there is a reason why our Earth is where it is in the universe, is because that's the only way life can sustain itself on this planet. I also think that the bomb could have broken the moon in pieces and caused it to start raining radioactive asteroids on Earth.
I agree with that.
Like, and also that wasn't even considered. I didn't see anywhere in the paper. They were just like, oh, it'll cause like seismic activity, maybe some earthquakes on the moon, I guess some moonquakes. Like, blah, blah, blah. But, like, nothing about it breaking off. Maybe I just skimmed it and missed that part, but I did not see that.
Well, again, like we've said a couple of times before, they knew actually what it was like up there. So.
Right. Anyway, there's probably so many other variables, so many other outcomes that could have happened that I wouldn't even be able to think about because I'm not like a scientist or anything, and I wouldn't be able to predict.
Right.
But if you guys have any predictions, let us know in the comments. What do you think would happen?
Or just tell us your anger at the people who thought that this was a good idea.
If you watched this and you didn't feel upset or irritated towards world leaders at any point in this episode, why? I'd love to know. In the comments, tell me why. Were you excited to learn about...
And not necessarily mad, but did you, like, if you didn't have, like, a WTF...
Right, if you weren't like, what the fuck?
Moment. Yeah.
If you weren't, like, irritated, you know what I mean? Like, if you weren't, like, face palm, you know? Like, ugh. If you didn't get from this that this was fully egos at play, then what do you think it was? Like, why would this have happened? You know what I mean? I don't know. I'd love to hear your thoughts in the comments below. I would love you to subscribe and like and comment. And there's a bell on our YouTube page. You can get notifications when we upload stuff. And let's all just remain calm and be grateful that they didn't nuke the moon.
And drink your water.
Drink your water. Drink your water. And be grateful the
still
moon.
Have the moon.
Even moons are victims. Justice
Believe
for the
all
moon.
moons. Believe all water. Believe all moons. Mm-hmm. The moon was almost the victim. Holy crap!
It really was.
That's insane.
Anyway, I wish you all the best. Take care of yourself. I apologize for the anger that I have created within your body. And I hope you have the best weekend. I hope you do something nice for yourself because you deserve it.
You do deserve it. Take care of yourself, and we will see you later. Goodbye.
Oh, damn!
I don't have hair, so I'm just flipping my flippers.
Okay, you ready?
Goodbye. Ew.
Oh, yeah.
There she is, purring. Okay.
Bye, guys.